Chapter 717, Slapping Faces. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly and elegantly walked down the arena and back to the place allocated to the Kanglan College. Amongst all the ones battling, she was the one who finished the battle first. The other cultivators were still on the arenas and battling with all their might. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongba saw that Bailey Hongzhuang solved the battle so fast, their eyes showing some strange gazes. Although they knew it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to lose, it was shocking that the battle ended in only one move. Isn't it said that the cultivators of Kanglan College are weak? That Bailey Hongzhuang used a single attack to defeat Lu Jinglin, is this considered weak? Some of the citizens could not help but gossip after seeing this scene. All along, under the illusion that the Lingyin College had painted of Kanglan College, then they all thought that they were weak and powerless. They even thought that the college should be closed directly, that it was a mistake to continue existing. One attack to defeat their enemy, this proved that her strength was not just a bit stronger than Lu Jinglin. That's not necessarily so. Maybe this Lu Jinglin is simply too weak. Look at the other arenas, who is losing that fast? You said it right, this Lu Jinglin is simply too weak. Lu Jinglin, who originally had a bad mood after losing, had an ugly face after hearing how people were talking about her. She had really become useless now. This was making her unable to accept. The proud her was filled with frustrations. At Beihai College she was a genius, pursued by all. Now she was said to be weak. This was a fatal blow. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yinggu apparently had not expected that Lu Jinglin would lose so fast in a face-to-face contest. This was truly losing face for the Beihai College. The two were too angry to even bother about Lu Jinglin and her injuries. Even if she was going to lose, she could lose in a much better way. The way Lu Jinglin lost was like a slap to their faces. They used to mock the Kanglan College for being the weakest amongst all the colleges. Now that they failed in this way, they were angry. Bailey Hongzhuang did not care about Lu Jinglin. Her eyes were observing the other platforms. Gong Shaoqing's strength was good. At this moment he was pressuring his opponent. She was quite certain that he would win the battle after a short amount of time. The situation of Dong Fengyu was also quite optimistic. Although the opponent was quite strong, the two of them were equal, but there was a confident smile on Dong Fengyu's lips, that made her understand that he was certain of his victory. The situation of Zhang Yunfeng and Bai Junyu was not too optimistic. Zhang Yunfeng's opponent was Nangong Yuer. Although Nangong Yuer was a spoiled princess, her strength was not exaggerated. The tournament clearly showed that the Lingyin College had some skills. Zhang Yunfeng's strength was not weak, but Nangong Yuer was obviously better, suppressing Zhang Yunfeng in everything she did. Master, Zhang Yunfeng is going to lose. Little Black slowly said, Nangong Yuer is not showing all her strength. From beginning to end, Nangong Yuer never regarded Zhang Yunfeng as a real opponent. She never did her best in attacking. Chapter 718, Nangong Yuer provokes. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The judgment of Little Black and Little White was not wrong. Nangong Yuer had broken through to the innate realm. Sure enough, the royal family's members were not simple. In fact, no matter what rich resources the royal family owned, it would be hard to not have a good cultivation. In comparison, it was obvious that Nangong Yujin was the worst from the royal family in the tournament. His sister had already broken through into the innate realm, but he had not. It was obvious that this young man only cared about women. Since that day she had gotten a better understanding of Nangong Yujin. The third prince of the Qing dynasty was famous for his lust. Not only was he often visiting the brothels, if he found a beautiful woman on the streets, he would take her home directly. For this reason, the reputation of Nangong Yujin was quite bad in the Qing dynasty. It was only because of his identity as the third prince that no one dared say anything. The second prince, Nangong Xiujie, was somewhat better, but not by much. On the other hand, the crown prince Nangong Aochen was very loved by the people. Not only was he immensely strong, he had never done anything wrong. Bang! With a heavy blow by Nangong Yue, Zhang Yunfeng was hit and field directly from the platform, causing the battle to end. After winning, Nangong Yue looked directly at Bailey Hongzhuang, her chin held high and her pretty face filled with provocation. Master, this Nangong Yue seems to really hate you. Little Black's eyes were doubtful. Nangong Yue's attitude was obviously filled with provocation, but when did their owner offend her? Bailey Hongzhuang just shrugged, her expression innocent. She had no understanding as to why Nangong Yue had this attitude towards her. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes landed on the arena where Xia Jiqing was fighting. Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi could be considered equal, everything seemed even so far. None of them were retreating and they kept attacking the other's vital points. The hatred between the two was deep and now they finally got a chance to let it out. Bang! Xia Jiqing's hands used the long red whip she could not afford in the Wubao pavilion. After seeing that Xia Jiqing liked it, Bailey Hongzhuang bought the long whip and made Xia Jiqing use it in the tournament. Lu Jingqi was using a long sword and was also rushing to attack Xia Jiqing. It was just that whenever she attacked, Xia Jiqing could use the long whip to entangle her sword. Upon seeing this, Lu Jingqi did not panic. Yuanli continued to enter the longsword's range and slowly managed to unravel the long whip's entrapment. They were constantly fighting but no one knew who will win. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was focusing on the battle between Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing, Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu walked up to her side, as they had finished, and won, their battles. Hongzhuang, you were so fast at finishing the battle. Dong Fangyu's face was filled with emotion, he had seen her finish the battle before his had even begun. Chapter 719, Time to end this battle. Bailey Hongzhuang just smiled lightly, but without waiting for her to say anything, Lu Huayan's voice that was filled with laughter already rang. Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Lu Jinglin with one stroke, it gave us a good head start. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's mood was quite good. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, and Dong Fangyu had won, this score was not considered bad at all. It was still uncertain who amongst Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi would win, but if Xia Jiqing won, then they had managed to advance 4 people. Compared to the last 2 times the tournament had been held, this was a much better result. Zhang Yunfeng, Bai Junyu, and Cui Haoyan were filled with a feeling of defeat, they had lost and could not pass the first round in the tournament. Mentors, I am sorry, the mood of these 3 were immensely bad, they knew they needed good results in the tournament, but they were unable to even get through the first round, they felt uncomfortable at heart. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba flashed a kindness in their eyes and patted the shoulders of the students. There will always be loss in a tournament, there is no need to think too much about it. The cultivators of Lingyin and Beihai College were strong. The reason Zhang Yunfeng and the others failed was not because of they not being strong enough, but because their opponents were simply just too powerful. Zhang Yunfeng was injured. After Fu Hongba took out the previously prepared healing medicine and gave it to Zhang Yunfeng, everyone turned their eyes to the battle between Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi. Not only the students of Kanglan College, also the students of Beihai College were worried about this battle. Both colleges had 3 people who advanced into the next round, the winner of this battle would determine who had the upper hand. The strength of this Lu Jingqi seems a bit stronger than it was at Longuang City. Gong Shaoqing judged this after seeing the current battle of Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing. Although Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing were at the same cultivation stage, Xia Jiqing should be slightly higher. But it was impossible to say who would win, it was impossible for Lu Jingqi to hide her strength. I hope that Jiqing can win. Zhang Yunfeng's eyes were filled with hope. She had lost in the first round of the tournament, but now she only hoped that Xia Jiqing could win. In this way, then even if she had lost in the first round, if they could have 4 places, they would hold the upper hand against the Beihai College. Xia Jiqing, you are so arrogant normally, now you aren't so strong. Lu Jingqi sneered, her eyes were filled with ridicule. Xia Jiqing sneered and looked coldly at Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi, this trash talking is useless, I have not seen you having the strength to defeating me yet. Seeing that Xia Jiqing had directly guessed her thoughts, Lu Jingqi's face was ugly. She had thought of taking this opportunity to teach Xia Jiqing a lesson, but she never thought that her strength was comparable to her own. She had not succeeded so far. The power within their bodies had already been consumed by more than half, it would not work to continue this way. However, the next moment Xia Jiqing slowly said, "Now, it's time to end this battle." Chapter 720, Martial Arts Skill of the Middle Mysterious Rank. Listening to Xia Jiqing, Lu Jingqi was taken by surprise, before a sneer appeared on the corner of her lips. "Xia Jiqing, who do you think you are? It is not that easy to defeat me." Lu Jingqi thought that Xia Jiqing was just bragging. They had not been able to determine the winner so far, but Xia Jiqing had to say that. The battle is not over yet, wasn't she just being stupid? Then they saw that Xia Jiqing's power was surging and there was a fierce light in her eyes. Fire dancing whip. When the voice of Xia Jiqing fell, under the horrified eyes of the audience, the red whip in Xia Jiqing's hand suddenly burst into a large flame, like a fire snake, flexible and fiercely attacking Lu Jingqi. This flame was not fake, it really existed. Because everyone clearly felt how the temperature in the surrounding area suddenly increased when the flame appeared. The feeling of Lu Jingqi, who was opposite Xia Jiqing, was the clearest. Sweat was oozing out from her forehead, her eyes also betraying her emotions, showing how nervous she was. She did not think that Xia Jiqing would have such a strong move, it was clearly out of the scope of yellow-ranked martial arts. It was at least mysterious. As for what level of the mysterious martial arts it was, she did not know. That was not the most important thing either, the most important thing was that she did not have such strong martial arts skills. When the strength of the two of them was equal, what mattered was martial arts skills. Since she has no martial arts skill that can compete against it, she was doomed to lose this match. The students of Lingyin College also had changed their expressions at this moment. They had been mocking the students of Kanglan College, calling them weak, but now it seemed they might even be stronger than Beihai College. This is at least the middle-ranked mysterious martial arts. Xia Jiqing is merely a mysterious heaven-ranked cultivator, but she already has a middle-ranked mysterious martial arts. I am afraid that Lu Jingqi can only lose now. In my opinion, this college is not weak, how come it could be like this in the rumors? There were a lot smarter people at the scene and they could understand what was going on. Although the last two college tournaments last 2 times had been bad for Kanglan College, the performance this time was quite outstanding. The students of Beihai College had ugly expressions. They had originally planned on finishing off the students from Kanglan College. The best would have been to ensure that none of them would make it to the second round of the tournament. However, they never expected that the situation was like this, their performance was even better than their own. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu looked at each other, their faces ugly. They did not expect that the students of Kanglan College were so good, the last 2 times they were not this good. Huan Chuyo's face held a faint and satisfied smile. He was indeed satisfied with the performance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Well, I had not expected the students of Kanglan College to be crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Jian Qingqiu's face was filled with smiles, these good students, I have not even heard about them before. Huan Chuyu smiled. Their performance is also out of my expectations. Jian Qingqiu looked at Huan Chuyu and noticed that he was confident as he himself. His mood turned worse. What he wanted was to destroy them completely and prove to everyone that the decision he had made was correct. The constant stubbornness of the Kanglan College would lead them to demise. However, now the performance of the Kanglan College had already been out of his expectations. It is no wonder that their principal so easily agreed to hold the college tournament in advance, they had already prepared for it. The vice president of Beihai College, Zhang Hongxi, sat next to Lin Yinghao and his expression was the ugliest amongst all the principals and vice principals that were present. He also had complete confidence in this college tournament, but he had not expected that he would already be feeling threatened before the first round even ended. Lingyin College was first place, no one could doubt this, but if Kanglan College overtook their college that'd be the biggest shame. Vice President Song, the strength of the students of your college which have been defeated seems a bit bad, Huan Chuyu said with a casual voice. The feeling of finally being able to mock him was great and Song Hongshi's face turned gloomy. Huan Chuyu did not like Song Hongshi. He might be the vice principal of Beihai College, but now that they were a dog to the Lingyin College, all the power was in Lingyin College's hands. As a cultivator, integrity was the most important, but what had happened to Song Hongshi and the entire Beihai College? How many students can be led by this vice president? Song Hongshi looked at him with a sullen look. Lu Jinglin's performance today is poor because she was injured on the way to the Lingyin College, she has still not fully recovered. Song Haoshi would never let Huan Chuyu give him a tag of having weak people in his college, and immediately found a suitable excuse. Lingyin's Lin Yinghao instantly pretended to be surprised. I see, no wonder this was the result. Since the tournament was about to begin but she still managed to become injured, she sure is very careless. Huan Chuyu shook his head, the sarcasm in his words was obvious. Over the years, Beihai College has often ridiculed Kanglan College since they had the backing of Lingyin College. Every year they would make them lose students. The teachers of Beihai College would go to the countries close to Kanglan College and poach the talented geniuses. This had always made Huan Chuyu and Ren Tianxiong feel disgusted. It was obvious that the Beihai College had done a lot of small tricks throughout the years. Initially Huan Chuyu and Ren Tianxiong had no intention of acting on it, but now that things had reached this point, they had completely torn their faces with one another. He did not mind taunting them a bit. After all, you can't always suffer this kind of disgusting behavior, might at least let Song Hongshi understand what he was up against. Song Hongshi had never expected that Huan Chuyu would change his attitude so much. Even so, he could say nothing in return. Can you possibly say that Lu Jinglin was injured by Bailey Hongzhuang previously? Doesn't that just mean that she was useless? Therefore Song Hongshi can only swallow the bad breath. In fact, Lu Jinglin's show today was truly too unsatisfactory. Bang! A loud noise came crashing down as the hot temperature spread and out of the flames fell Lu Jingqi's body. It fell heavily to the ground. Seeing this unexpected scene, the audience could not help but burst into discussion. Although they knew the power of the martial art that Xia Jiqing was using was outstanding, they had never expected it to be this shocking. In a battle where Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi were completely equal, it was shocking that Lu Jingqi had no resistance at all. She was directly blown up. There was a big smile on Dongfang Yu's face. Is Xia Jiqing showing off the inheritance she got in the ruins? Before this, they had heard that Xia Ziwing had been taught a whip skill in the ruins. Now, looking at the power of the move, it was truly powerful. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. It should be. During the time since the ruins they had already mastered the inheritance from the ruins. From this, she can see that Xia Jiqing had full control over the martial arts. However, the amount of energy needed for this mysterious martial art was a lot, and it was difficult to display it with the cultivation base of Xia Jiqing. After all, the higher rank a martial arts was, the more power was needed in order to display it. If they were not strong enough, and they still forcefully tried using this skill, it might even harm themselves. If she guessed correctly, then this should be a mysterious middle-ranked martial arts skill. However, it should be much stronger than others of the same rank. In fact, if the martial art was higher ranked than that, then it would not be Lu Jingqi that was lying on the ground right now, but Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi had directly fainted, but Xia Jiqing was not much better off. Obviously this attack had exhausted all her strength. Xia Jiqing wins. When the voice of the judge fell, Xia Jiqing revealed a brilliant smile. She finally won. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate to rush to her side and placed a pill into her mouth. She had used far too much energy in this battle and there was still the second round coming up. She needed to restore her Yuanli as soon as possible. Hongzhuang I won. Xia Jiqing was too excited as she waved her hands. This victory was important to her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and gave a thumbs up, "You are great. Because of you, we have overtaken Beihai College." Dongfang Yu and the others were also happy. After seeing Xia Jiqing, they also raised their thumbs. "Jiqing, you are so powerful. Beautiful victory." The hearts of the people from the Kanglan College were happy. In the first round they had 4 people advancing. Lingyin College had 3 people who advanced, not counting Nangong Aochen who directly entered the final. Kanglan College also had 4 people, while Beihai only had 3. Soon the judges handed over the results of who had progressed to the second round to Jian Qingqiu. He then threw a glance at the final result and stood up to announce the names. In the first round, those who qualified for the second round from Lingyin College are Nangong Xiujie, Gangong Yuer and Jin Xingyu. The ones from Beihai College who won the first round are Xiaolanmei, Shueholing and Nan Yangzi. Kanglan College's winning students are Bailey Hongzhuang, Gong Xiaoqing, Dongfang Yu, and Xia Jiqing. With the announcements of the results the cultivators from the schools cheered. No matter what, at least they managed to enter the second round and got some of the limelight. I did not expect Kanglan College to be this strong. They had 4 people who advanced to the second round. It seems that our previous thoughts were all wrong. Damn, I bet on Beihai College winning, but now they already lost in the first round. They are normally so arrogant, this is really shameful. If I knew, I'd have bet on Kanglan College. Currently they have the best odds. Someone had already started a betting pool before the start of the tournament. Because everyone knew that Lingyin College were going to be the winners, the gambles were all between Beihai and Kanglan College. From the odds everyone understood that Kanglan College had no chance to win, so most chose Beihai College, only a few would bet on Kanglan College. At this moment, seeing that Beihai College was suppressed, their hearts were depressed. Now it was impossible to change their bets, but if they could, they would have bet on Kanglan College. For this reason, Beihai College had become the subject of everyone's ire. The faces of Lu Jinglin and the others had long since turned ugly. They were filled with confidence. They did not expect that only 3 would advance to the second round. They had the fewest cultivators in the tournament now, their chances of winning were the smallest. Mo Xinghai and Duaning Wu's faces were ugly to the extreme. They used to be so arrogant in front of Lu Huaiyan, but now they dared not even look at him. It was simply too shameful. The show you displayed today is simply too bad. Mo Xinghai looked at the students behind him with annoyance. He had hoped that they would show off their might and stun everyone at this tournament, but they did the opposite. Lu Jinglin lowered her head. She was without a doubt the worst performer of them all. She felt that the eyes, that the mentor used to look at her with, would chop her into pieces. On the side, Lu Jingqi was still unconscious. Even though she had been given medicine, it would take some time for her to wake up again. The strength of Xia Jiqing's move was simply just too strong. EU mentors, in round 2 we will do our very best. Xue Houling said as he clenched his fist. The humiliation he was receiving right now, he would definitely give it back to the Kanglan cultivators in the next round. Lu Jinglin looked gratefully at Xue Houling. His words had freed her from the previous predicament. Initially she did not like Xue Houling very much. She always just let him pursue her with no intention of responding, but now she felt that he was more manly than before. Mentors, the current result does not represent the final result. Xia Jiqing has now used all her energy, she cannot perform well in the next round. Nan Yangzi slowly said. Seeing the expressions of Xue Houling and Nan Yangzi, both Mo Xinghai and Duaning Wu's faces turned much better. This was something they also knew. Although the first round of competition was over with the Kanglan College having more places than them, the second round would begin soon. There was no time to rest in the middle. With the current situation of Xia Jiqing, it was impossible to recover before the beginning of the next round. As a result, she was definitely going to be eliminated. In the next round, no mistakes are allowed. Duan Yingwu's stance was tough. The strength these students displayed represented the strength of the mentors. If the students did badly, it would say that they were bad mentors. Yes. Xue Haoling and Nan Yangzi nodded their heads. They would do their best in the next battle. Compared to Xue Haoling and Nan Yangzi's loud agreements, Xiao Lanmei never said anything and was as casual as always. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu were both familiar with the character of Xiao Lanmei. He was their trump card. Even the third prince lost in his hands, so it showed that he was not weak. He would definitely walk all the way to the final. Now everyone has an hour to rest. I hope you can adjust your state as soon as possible and do your best in the next round. Jian Qingqiu announced an hour break, and everyone started resting. There is only an hour, it will be very difficult for me to recover. Xia Jiqing's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. Her previous use of the dancing fire whip had drained her body completely of yuanli. Even though she had taken some medication, it was not enough to restore her in a short time. It was like a person who was hungry and hasn't eaten for a few days. Suddenly she had food, but because of being too weak, it was impossible to restore one's strength immediately. She could never recover in 1 hour. 1 hour is indeed too little. Dongfang Yu frowned. Fortunately they had not been injured, otherwise they would have to completely miss the second round. This is simply too unreasonable. Zhang Yinfeng's face was filled with disgust. Their advantage in the first round had completely vanished like this. This rule is somewhat unreasonable, but it becomes reasonable when it is the same for everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. This kind of rule was not directed at them, but at everyone, so they could not complain about it. They could only accept it. When hearing her words, their expressions changed slightly. They were very unhappy, but they understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was reasonable. If the other two colleges did not complain but they did, everyone would have a bad impression of them. Xia Jiqing's face showed a bit of helplessness. If she had known this would be the result, she would not have used the dancing flame whip. It's just that Lu Jingqi was stronger than she had expected. She had no other option than to win this way. Xia Jiqing was depressed. From the beginning, she already knew that with her own strength, it was impossible to enter the finals. When thinking about it, she could not help but be grateful that her first opponent was Lu Jingqi. If she could not deal with Lu Jingqi before the second round, then in the second round, she would be able to help her teammates cause problems. They were there as a team, and all she wished for was to see her team go further. However, she was too weak, wasting an excellent opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xia Jiqing's shoulder. You already did great, don't overthink. Xia Jiqing nodded and smiled, but within her smile was some disappointment. Jiqing, I will help you with acupuncture, maybe it can help you increase your restoration rate. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. By using acupuncture she was able to stimulate the meridians and cells in the body, allowing for the body to absorb the qi with the fastest speed. As a result, it could perhaps help Xia Jiqing recover. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but ask, can it really work? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly while smiling. I said so naturally it will work. Don't forget who I am. Xia Jiqing's eyes shone brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was a famous medicinal doctor. Hongzhuang, you are the hope of our college, the one we hope will enter the finals. Applying acupuncture will consume your mental energy, are you sure about this? Zhang Yunfeng was worried. She naturally hoped that they could restore Xia Jiqing's strength, but if it affected Bailey Hongzhuang then it was not a good thing. Xia Jiqing also quickly agreed, Yunfeng is correct. Hongzhuang, you shouldn't help me, you are the most important. It was already a shame that she had failed, but if she dragged down Bailey Hongzhuang, then she would become the sinner of the academy. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand dismissively, don't worry. It is just stimulating the meridians, not removing poison or healing someone. It is not complicated and won't require much energy. Hongzhuang, are you sure? Xia Hongzhuang asked uncertainly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? Xia Jiqing couldn't help but look at Zhang Yunfeng to hear her opinion, but she also nodded her head. Since Hongzhuang says it's nothing, then let us try it. Next, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out her silver needles and her energy surged as she placed the silver needles into the acupoints of Xia Jiqing. This was the first time that Xia Jiqing was experiencing acupuncture. She had thought that it would be painful to have such long needles placed in her body, but after Bailey Hongzhuang placed the first needle, she did not feel the slightest pain. Instead, she felt a sense of soreness where the needle was placed, but it was very comfortable. Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a white porcelain bottle and gave it to Xia Jiqing. She said, there are some returning qi pills here. You should swallow 2 now. If they relied on Xia Jiqing's own ability to restore the strength within this 1 hour, it'd be impossible. As such, it was definitely important to use these returning qi pills. Xia Jiqing looked at the bottle of pills in her hands and her heart was bursting with emotions. Even knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was an alchemist, she couldn't help but marvel over her actions. This was completely like eating pills as if they were candy. Bailey Hongzhuang did not intend to make a big deal out of it, even though she was more wasteful than even a princess could be. In fact, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang act like this, even Nangong Yuer's eyes turned strange. A whole bottle of returning qi pills, she would naturally have no problem getting, but giving them to others, that was simply too wasteful. Lu Jinglin, do you know what this Bailey Hongzhuang is doing? Lu Jingqi had already fainted, so Nangong Yuer's eyes fell onto Lu Jinglin's body. In her opinion, the two sisters ought to be similar. Lu Jinglin shook her head slightly, she is just showing off and acting. This Bailey Hongzhuang likes to be the focus of everyone's attention. Hearing this, Nangong Yuer's eyes were getting filled with disgust. There was originally a bad impression of Bailey Hongzhuang, but now she was even more disgusted. Hey, Bailey Hongzhuang, you shouldn't be trying to help Xia Jiqing restore her power. Xue Haoling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze filled with taunt. Everyone knew that Xia Jiqing had spent all her energy on stage, and it was impossible to restore it in such a short amount of time. Although the rest time was short and they were supposed to spend the time restoring their own energy, Bailey Hongzhuang spent her time on restoring Xia Jiqing's. Was this not the same as looking for a slap in the face? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xue Haoling and said lazily, well done, you guessed it correctly. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang directly confirmed what he had been guessing, he was stunned, but then he laughed. You really like to pretend that you are generous and unselfish. You let your friends pick an inscription in Wubao Pavilion. Now you are spending your energy to save a useless teammate. If all of you cultivators from Kanglan College are like this, filled with benevolence, I think you should just give up right away. Xue Haoling was quite uncomfortable whenever he thought about Bailey Hongzhuang. It was the most important to restore one's own strength to peak condition. This move of Bailey Hongzhuang was stupid. Not only was she weakening herself, she would not be able to help Xia Jiqing. Even so, Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to pay attention to Xue Haoling. This guy was simply too selfish and was unaware of what exactly teamwork meant. Right now they were fighting for their college, but they were not relying only on their own strength. If everyone else failed in the first round, what use was it if one person advanced to the second round? Xue Haoling, I think that you and the Lu family are very suitable. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with anger and dissatisfaction. You are pursuing this Lu Jinglin, and your character is just as bad as the Lu family. You sure you are not one of their sisters? Not to mention these, anyone who dared to mock her and her friends, Xia Jiqing, would counterattack first. Lu Jinglin and her sister were too much. Now Lu Jingqi had been defeated by her, she thought that there was finally some silence, yet as soon as this happened, Xue Haolang appeared. Was this not too much? Listening to her words, Xue Haolang's face was ugly. What was the worst way to curse men? That was simply to say that they were not a man. And just now, Xia Jiqing had just said it, it was truly unbearable. Xia Jiqing, you are just a waste of a teammate, what is so good about having a sharp mouth? Xue Haolang said coldly. Xia Jiqing turned her head casually, at least I could defeat Lu Jingqi. With such a simple sentence, Xia Jiqing won the victory and slapped him in the face. A loser is a loser. At least she successfully advanced to the second round, this proved that she was indeed stronger than Lu Jingqi who lost at her hand. Lu Jinglin was annoyed, but Lu Jingqi had already fainted. Even after taking the pills, she was still not waking up. Now that Xia Jiqing said such things about Lu Jingqi, it was really hateful. Kanglan College has lost twice in a row. This time there will be no difference, we will take it. Nangong Xiujia's eyes fell onto the body of Bailey Hongzhuang. The original admiration he held for Bailey Hongzhuang at the beginning was now completely gone. This woman is definitely not a simple character. Not just thinking about her and Mo Yunjue's relationship, thinking about Lu Jinglin's defeat. According to the information they had learned, this Bailey Hongzhuang was also a cultivator who had broken through into the innate realm. When looking at her identity, she was simply an ordinary person. But no ordinary person could break into the innate realm at such a young age, this was clearly a genius. Even if he was at the age of Bailey Hongzhuang, he would not be able to break into the innate realm, but this woman had done so. Seeing that Nangong Xiujia took the initiative to find trouble, Bailey Hongzhuang did not stop and continued to help Xia Jiqing with acupuncture, while she sneered, it seems that the behavior of the royal family is to bully others, this temperament has not changed. When the words came out, Nangong Xiujia's face was ugly. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have some respect for a prince, that she would not say such things here. He did not understand that Bailey Hongzhuang was different. Not only was she not scared, she even said such things in public. A slightly different kind of gaze fell onto Nangong Xiujia, they all had a certain understanding of the second prince's behavior when it came to women. When looking at how Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Xiujia were against one another, could they have something going on between them? When thinking about how beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang was, then they understood faintly what had happened. Otherwise, with the character of Nangong Xiujia, if it wasn't because of a previous conflict, why would he come and find problems with Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Hongzhuang, you better pray that you will not meet me in the next round, otherwise you will die a very ugly death. Nangong Xiujia's words flashed with a cold light, and his words were full of threats. He had no interest in a woman who was already married. Not to mention, this Bailey Hongzhuang had provoked his anger, he had to teach her a lesson. You better pray not to meet me, the face of Bailey Hongzhuang was so cold, her eyes freezing. She had a bad impression of Nangong Xiujia. In a direct confrontation, she had never been afraid. Originally she was too lazy to pay attention to these provocations, but since they came to Lingyin College, these provocations and all the sarcasm of these people had never stopped. It was as if they thought she was afraid of them. This time, she showed her strength. No matter how powerful her opponent was, she would go all the way. When her words fell, the practitioners present were all stunned. This attitude was completely different from the previous Bailey Hongzhuang. Had the pressure gone to her head? Nangong Xiujia only thought that it was fun, that Bailey Hongzhuang felt herself to be an important person. It was a simple thing to deal with someone weaker than themselves, a simple attack would solve it. Thinking like this, Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a bit arrogant. However, although she had a bit of strength, should she be so full of it? Instead of taking it seriously, Nangong Xiujie was too lazy to pay attention to it. If he truly began arguing with them, then he would lose out. Shui Haoling was the perfect example of that. Bailey Hongzhuang was seated on the ground and made Xia Jiqing continue to swallow one returning qi pill after another. In the process, Xia Jiqing was stunned to find that the tiredness in her body slowly vanished and that every cell in her body was greedily absorbing the energy contained in the pills. Xia Jiqing's face was getting brighter and she admired Bailey Hongzhuang more than before. She was simply a god. After Bailey Hongzhuang took back the silver needles, Zhang Yunfeng and the others came over and asked, "Jiqing, how are you feeling?" "I recovered. The feeling of exhaustion is completely gone." Xia Jiqing had a hard time hiding her excitement on her pretty face. Her whole body was alive and kicking, and her current actions were just proving her physical condition. Understanding the situation, Zhang Yunfeng and the others all smiled happily. They did not expect that in less than half an hour, Xia Jiqing would be able to return to such a level. It was a good thing for the next round. On the other hand, the cultivators of Beihai and Lingyin colleges were stunned at Xia Jiqing's expressions. Clearly she was not pretending. They also didn't see any signs of tiredness. After real tiredness, the body would fall into exhaustion and it would be hard to move. The situation of Xia Jiqing deviated from what they could understand. It was simply impossible to imagine that Xia Jiqing could be restored to her peak condition in such a short amount of time. "How is this possible?" Lu Jinglin exclaimed. All of them agreed that it was impossible for Xia Jiqing to restore her energy, but the situation in front of them made it impossible to refute. Shui Haoling's expression was very ugly. He had just finished laughing at Bailey Hongzhuang and said that what she was doing was useless, but when they looked at the current situation, wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang impossible to defeat? She was helping the college recover their fighting power. How did Bailey Hongzhuang do it? Shui Haoling looked as if he had seen a ghost. He knew that there was no way to restore energy apart from time. But now this scene had happened in front of them. They still could not understand what Bailey Hongzhuang had done. Xiao Lanmei's gaze fell onto the body of Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was extraordinary from the first moment they had met. With today's display he felt that she was getting more and more complex, and that silver needle, it seemed very similar to the method that the doctors used to use. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at each other. What an amazing method. If they could master this method, then their situation would be much better. The eyes of the cultivators within the crowd also locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. They quite liked this girl. Even if she was a student of Kanglin College, she was able to defeat her opponent in a single blow, and successfully display her strength. The girl from Kanglin College is very good. How was she even capable of restoring the other's strength? I don't know, this is simply unheard of, but it is really amazing. I think the school is awesome. She might be a true black horse. Even so, Lingyin College was still the strongest and Bailey Hongzhuang offended the second prince. She won't have a good end. As soon as the students of Lingyin College heard the remarks of the crowd, they instantly began rebutting their words. In their hearts no one was allowed to make problems for their royal family. Bailey Hongzhuang had dared to not put the royal family in her eyes. This was the same as looking for death. Above the stage, on the high platform, Jian Qingqiu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a strange expression. This had not progressed as he expected. Old friend, what Bailey Hongzhuang used. It could not have been acupuncture. Jian Qingqiu was the principal of Lingyin College and he had seen many things. Although the acupuncture techniques had been lost for many years, this method was very sought after by the doctors, so he still remembered it. Acupuncture has long since been lost, how could it possibly appear in the hands of a little girl? Without waiting for an answer, Zhang Hongxi had already taken the lead to answer. His face was filled with disdain. What a joke! The technique of acupuncture was a method that many famous doctors had never mastered, and it was long since lost in the passing of time. Bailey Hongzhuang was just a cultivator, not even a professional doctor. How could she possibly master such a method? Hearing that, Jian Qingqiu's eyes changed a few times. Was he really just thinking too much? Although he also thought about it being ridiculous, he could not help but think so because it truly looked like the lost technique of acupuncture. In the next moment, Jian Qingqiu and Song Hongxi looked horrified as Huan Chuyu slowly nodded his head. Yes, this is the technique of acupuncture, the principal has a good eyesight. When the voice of Huan Chuyu fell, Jian Qingqiu and Song Hongxi's hearts were filled with unspeakable shock. The Kanglan College was too dazzling this time. The strength of the students was much stronger than before. In this team, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing were first-year students. When they knew about this fact, they thought that the Kanglan College was not as good as the previous years, that the talents were slowly dwindling. Even the first-grade students were sent to the tournament. But when they looked at the situation in front of them, then Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing had both advanced to the second round of the tournament. This proved that the strength of the first-grade students was way stronger than they had expected. "Hey old friend, are you joking?" Song Hongxi smiled a little embarrassed. Bailey Hongzhuang is a cultivator, how can she master the lost technique of acupuncture? Looking at the suspicion of Song Hongxi, Huan Chuyu was also proud in his heart. Over the years, Song Hongxi had been ridiculing them and their students, now he could finally let Song Hongxi look like this. You don't know about this, but Bailey Hongzhuang is not only a cultivator, she is also a real doctor. If you are feeling uncomfortable, she can definitely cure you, since you are the vice principal, then Bailey Hongzhuang would even give you a discount. Huan Chuyu smiled brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly the pride of their school. Even if he was the vice principal, he was still amazed whenever he thought about the achievements of Bailey Hongzhuang. She had so much strength at such a young age, her future was limitless. Jian Qingqiu and Song Hongxi looked at one another. Although the smile of Huan Chuyu was ugly in their eyes, they were still too shocked to really care. The Kanglan College is really amazing, the students are skilled. Jian Qingqiu smiled a little but his heart still held some disdain. This kind of thing seemed very prestigious, but as a principal he was clear that it was bad for the cultivator. Cultivation was a matter of time and effort. If you wanted to take time off to do other things, then you would lose time on cultivation. At the beginning the gap might not seem big, but as you grew, the gap would be bigger and bigger, it was not a good thing. Huan Chuyu could hear the words of Jiang Qingqiu and understood what he said, in fact he had previously agreed with him. However, after seeing the progress of Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt that it was truly wrong. In this world, there were some geniuses which could not be counted with common sense. After Xia Jiqing had recovered, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gathered together. The second round of the tournament was also very crucial. They had to be prepared. When I first fought against Xue Haoling I was completely defeated by his inscription. Xiu Haoyan's face was filled with unwillingness. His strength was not weaker than Xue Haoling, but the inscription H had was very powerful. Because of this disadvantage he was defeated by Xue Haoling. If it was a loss because of his strength not being strong enough, then he had nothing to say, but he lost because of outside factors, which made him unsatisfied. Inscription. Gong Shaoqing's brows furrowed slightly. It seems that Xue Haoling bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. His weapon was also inscribed with an inscription, but he had not used it in the first round. As Shaoqing said, it makes sense. Xue Haoling has always been rich, it is not a surprise if he bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. Dongfang Yu snot slightly. What effect does Xue Haoling's inscription have? It is a flaming effect and it is very lethal. If you are accidentally burned you need to be extra careful. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but frown, there was no inscription at the Wubao pavilion like that with flaming attributes. The dancing flame whip she had inherited in the ruins was a fire attribute, so she was quite concerned about the inscriptions of the flame attribute, just like her character which was very fiery. On the day of the Wubao pavilion, she looked for an inscription that had fire attribute for a long time, but in the end she could only give up. She had not expected that Xue Haolang could find a fire attribute inscription at Wubao pavilion. Maybe they added it later. Zhang Yunfeng frowned. It was not impossible. Just as Zhang Yunfeng and the others were discussing, Xue Haolang was also showing off his inscription at the practitioners at Beihai College. I did not expect the power of my inscription to be this fierce. Xue Haolang looked smug. He had only thought of using the inscription last night, and he thought the effect was quite good, but he had not expected it to be this good. When Xue Haolang's voice fell, all the eyes of the Beihai College students landed on his body. Previously they just cared about their own battles, as such they did not notice what the situation of Xue Haolang's battle was. When they heard his words, they were surprised and unaware of when he had managed to get his hands on an inscription. Xue Haolang, where did you get this inscription from? Lu Jinglin's face was showing some curiosity. They knew for a fact that it was not from Wubao Pavilion. Although they went to Wubao Pavilion the next day, the price of the inscription was simply too high. They understood that although the Wubao Pavilion sold inscriptions, it was mainly for the sake of reputation. Selling an inscription was just a bonus. If Xue Haolang had not lost his Qianquan bag, he would have been able to afford one, but his Qianquan bag was lost, so he was powerless. Looking at the curious expressions, Xue Haolang smiled proudly. Previously the elders of my family took it back to me after attending an auction. I did not expect it to be this easy to use. Then was it not very expensive? The price of an inscription at an auction ought to be very high. Xue Haolang waved his hand dismissively. Not expensive at all. My elder bought 3 copies and gave me one, while the other 2 were given to my brothers. Although Xue Haolang said that it was not expensive, everyone knew the truth in their hearts. Who did not know that Xue Haolang was super rich? Even if he said it was not expensive, it would be expensive for most people. Inscriptions have always been precious, and especially inscriptions like Xue Haolang's that were so good, the price would be extreme. Xue Haolang smiled as he felt the envy of Lu Jinglin and the others. Truth was, that this inscription was truly not very expensive. The elder had not cared about it when he bought it, and gave it to him casually. He had originally wanted to buy an inscription at Wubao Pavilion, but the price was simply so high he had to give up. The previous night, he was thinking about the fact that he would be participating in the tournament next, and even if the use of the inscription was nothing special, it might be able to help him a bit. However, after using it today, he found that it was not just a little help, it was a huge increase in power. Xiao Lanmei's eyes fell onto the red inscription on Xue Haolang's weapon. He noticed the effect of the inscription and had to admit that it was powerful. The inscription masters were truly great. They were able to change something so easily. If the difference in strength between the 2 parties was not too big, then the inscription would directly determine the final outcome. That Xue Haolang is showing off. Cui Haoyan was filled with dissatisfaction. The most annoying guy was showing off again. Xue Haolang also noticed that Cui Haoyan was glaring angrily at him, and provocatively lifted his weapon in his hand, saying with an extremely proud voice. Idiot, you must blame yourself for not buying an inscription. If you can't afford it, then so be it. Xue Haolang felt no shame with winning by relying on inscriptions. After all, one's finances was also part of their strength. Every genius was produced under the constant use of resources. A poor man could not even afford a weapon, so how could they possibly become a cultivator? Seeing how Xue Haoling was so proud of himself, Cui Haoyan was even angrier than ever before. He had never before seen such a shameless guy. However, he had to admit that what Xue Haoling said was not unreasonable. Because he could not afford it, he was unable to defeat Xue Haoling in this situation. If he had the same financial resources and ability to purchase an inscription, then maybe things would have been different, but it was a pity that this was nothing but his imagination. Master, why do I feel that this guy's inscription is familiar? Little Black asked with his eyes filled with doubt. It was as if he had seen this inscription somewhere before. Suddenly Little White's eyes shone and he said surprised, Master, isn't this the inscription you made? The owner had been drawing the same inscription over and over again. It was drawn so many times that it was clearly remembered by them all. This was her inscription. Hearing the words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly embarrassed. It should just be a coincidence. She had auctioned 3 inscriptions in total back when she was still at Kanglan College, but how far away was Beihai from Kanglan? The chance was simply too small for this to happen. But Master, the pattern of the 6-pointed star is exactly like the one you drew. Ba Shiha also noticed the inscription mark on the weapon, and kept staring at the 6-pointed star. Even if it is a 6-pointed star, it is not certain it's the one I drew, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. The pattern of the 6-pointed star is just a structure on the inscription paper. Many inscriptions has such a structure, although the structure looks similar, it is not necessarily the same effect. But I think it's the same, Little Black looked serious. I even dare bet a mal that this is the inscription made by Master. Seeing Little Black suddenly saying it with such conviction, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly strange. After being together with Little Black for as long as she had, she understood its character very well. If it did not have confidence it would never say such a thing. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at Xue Haoling and say, Xue Haoling, your inscription is so great, I wonder if you'll let me take a look. When her words fell, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They were frowning as this was not the kind of behavior that Bailey Hongzhuang had shown so far. Xia Jiqing and the others were also puzzled. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang interested in Xue Haoling's inscription? According to their understanding, she ought to hate Xue Haoling. Xue Haoling's mind could not help but secretly think back to the time they were in the Wubao Pavilion. It had already been proved that she had a certain understanding of inscriptions. Was it possible that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to look at Xue Haoling's inscription and adapt a strategy to defeat him? In Cui Haoyan's heart, Bailey Hongzhuang would never do something without a purpose. She must have a good reason to suddenly do this. Xue Haoling, will there be a conspiracy with Bailey Hongzhuang? Lu Jinglin saw this and could not help but worry. Right now the team of Beihai College was at a disadvantage. If Bailey Hongzhuang ruined Xue Haoling's inscription, then their situation would be even worse. However, Xue Haoling shook his hand and said in a carefree manner, no, it is impossible to do it in front of everyone. Xue Haoling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with interest and smiled lightly, since you want to see it then I will lend it to you, but don't break it. Seeing Xue Haoling so proud, the eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but gleam with laughter. This guy really liked to show off. Don't worry, since you have been so polite, I will naturally not damage it. Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. Xue Haoling's brows changed slightly as he walked to the front of Bailey Hongzhuang. The sword was shaking slightly before it settled in front of her, allowing her to see the 6-pointed star clearly. Can you see it now? Xue Haoling asked with a smile, but I don't think you can understand it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang clearly saw the pattern and she was slightly stumped. Because this inscription was clearly from her hand, how could it fall into the hands of Xue Haoling? Xue Haoling, this inscription should not have been bought by your elders in Kanglan City. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly sounded. She had already heard from Xue Haoling that it was bought by his elders at an auction. In that case, then this inscription was in all likelihood bought in Kanglan City. It is impossible for someone to buy it and sell it in another auction house, after which it would fall into Xue Haolang's hands. The probability was simply too small. When the words came ut, Xue Haolang's expression changed a bit. He had not said this, so how could Bailey Hongzhuang know? On the other hand, the eyes of Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongba landed on Xue Haolang's boy. Bailey Hongzhuang would not ask this question without a reason. There had to be something they did not know. However, Xue Haolang, who is a cultivator of Beihai College, had his elders appearing in Kanglan City. That was simply too strange. With the expression of Xue Haolang, Bailey Hongzhuang has already confirmed that she had guessed correctly. Xue Haolang's elders went to Kanglan, and it was likely to be before the tournament began. All along she thought it was only a trap at the college tournament, but she did not expect that the reach of Beihai College had already reached Kanglan College. It was simply too much. Not only the expression of Xue Haolang but also the expression of Lu Jinglin and the others changed. The situation was never a secret in their eyes. Their purpose was to destroy the Kanglan College. It is just embarrassing to be called out like this by Bailey Hongzhuang. The atmosphere became rather awkward, and the three teams on the ground were all aware of the truth. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongba looked uneasily at Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingguo. The Beihai College was truly more and more despicable. The face of Huan Chuyu was also not very good looking. They had already noticed the movement of Beihai College, but they did not expect that they would have sent someone else this time. Although the biggest opponent is Lingyin College, they would never stoop so low to use such means. On the other hand, Beihai College is like a despicable villain. They did not care if it was doing something unspeakable and made people feel sick. Xue Haolang quickly disagreed. How can there be an inscription at a place where not even the birds wants to go? I think you are thinking too much. Xue Haolang's eyes were filled with disdain, but at the same time he was uncomfortable because of the words spoken by Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the words of Xue Haolang had successfully provoked the anger of the Kanglan cultivators. What did you say? I think Beihai City is the place where birds don't want to be. Cui Haoyan said coldly. This Xue Haolang was truly the best case of ivory was incapable of coming out of a dog's mouth. Xue Haolang said ironically, is that so? If the city is a place where birds do not even want to be, then how could I buy inscriptions there? Su Haolang was getting better and better at lying. I told you my inscription was bought in Beihai City. Your jealousy is useless. Hearing this, Cui Haoyan looked at Xue Haolang coldly. In fact, he knew that Sanlang did not sell inscriptions. Even so, the city is still very prosperous, but Xue Haolang said that it was a place that not even birds wanted to visit. Beihai City has wastes like yourself. There is no way we would be jealous, Xia Jiqing said. Xue Haolang looked at Xia Jiqing with disgust. You might be good at talking, but you want to sneak into Beihai College to buy an inscription. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips suddenly evoked a smile. Such an ordinary inscription, why would we spend our money to buy it? Her voice just fell when Xue Haolang sneered. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't say the grapes are sour, just because you can't eat them. Is it not obvious? Since you say it is an ordinary inscription, then let's see you come up with one like it. I saw that in your team. Apart from Gong Shaoqing, no one has an inscription. Xue Haolang was feeling upset. The effect of this inscription has been personally tested, and the fire attribute attack was very good. The attack was very explosive and it was lethal. It was suitable for attacking. The crowd also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was bragging. Even the most common inscription was not accessible to ordinary cultivators. Even some of them have never even seen an inscription. If you say this, is it not the same as digging a pit for yourself? The eyes of Zhang Hongxi was also falling onto Bailey Hongzhuang. There might be some strength to this Bailey Hongzhuang, but it is ridiculous to behave like this. Huan Chuyou's eyes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not understand what her purpose was it to intentionally anger Xue Haoling? However, his understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang was that she would never do such an immature thing. On Bailey Hongzhuang's lips was a ridiculing smile. Originally she did not understand the full effect of the inscription and thus wanted to take it out for auction. She did not want to take it out when she knew so little about it. Since then she had focused on drawing inscriptions and not using them. Today Xue Haoling had helped her understand the strength of her inscription, so she no longer needed to worry about it. If I take it out, what will you do? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Xue Haoling had never expected that she would be so serious about the matter, but he could not help but sigh. If you can take it up, then I will destroy my sword. Bailey Hongzhuang was happy and she wanted to annoy Xue Haoling. She never expected he would dig a pit for himself. Are you sure you want to do this? Of course I am certain. Not waiting for Lu Jinglin to stop him, Xue Haoling had already blurted out the words. He did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could come up with this particular inscription. If she could really take it out, she would not have waited doing it until now. Seeing Xue Haoling's fast promise, Lu Jinglin felt helplessness. She always felt that there was a trap prepared with the sudden change of Bailey Hongzhuang. With her understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, this inscription was taken from Kanglan City back then. Bailey Hongzhuang had been living in Kanglan City, so it might be possible for her. In that case, I will let you see it. Next, in front of everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a thick stack of inscriptions from her Qianquan bag. That's right. It was a thick stack. When he saw the same red six-pointed star pattern, Xue Haoling almost fainted. How was this possible? Are you doing this especially to trouble me? With so many inscriptions, are you trying to sell them? Even if you want to sell inscriptions, do you need that many? Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly against the sky. With so many inscriptions, how could she possibly be normal? Bailey Hongzhuang took one of the inscriptions and shook it in front of Xue Haoling. Isn't this the inscription you are so proud of? Then Bailey Hongzhuang casually started playing with it, and said, it's just that the inscription is very common. If it is used on a weapon it will affect the future of the weapon, hence I have never been using them. I did not think that you got this ordinary inscription and you'd still be so proud. If I did not show it to you, I am afraid you would not know how big the world is. Then Bailey Hongzhuang took the inscriptions and handed them over to Xia Jiqing and to the others. There was some helplessness between her brows. If I knew earlier that this inscription was considered good, then I would have given it to you earlier, to avoid us being made fun of like this. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had some regrets. She used these inscriptions to practice, she never knew their actual strength. If she had known the strength she would have already given them to everyone, then at least Cui Haoyan would not have been beaten by Xue Haoling. Cui Haoling and the others accepted the inscription from Bailey Hongzhuang. Their eyes filled with shock and wonder. They already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was a master when it came to pill refinement, but now they knew she was a master of masters. Has anyone else seen inscriptions handled like this? Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang, they were sure they would never find a second person. The cultivators of Beihai College had been greatly affected. They had seen how much increase in strength Xue Haoling had gotten from the inscription and they were envious. They would never have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang could take out so many, and even gave them to her classmates for nothing. It was truly shocking. What kind of wonders did Kanglan College have this time? No one was calm, even Nangong Xiujie and the others. They too felt wronged after seeing the situation at this moment. Even if they were from the royal family, it was definitely impossible to come up with so many inscriptions. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at one another, their eyes filled with disbelief. Having so many inscriptions, just who was this Bailey Hongzhuang? Even the most common inscription like this was impossible for a person to get their hands on. It was difficult to meet an inscription master. Zhang Hongxi, who had been ridiculing her, couldn't help but change his expression after seeing this scene. The smug smile at the corner of his mouth also quickly disappeared. Huan Chuyu also blinked for a moment and the smile at the bottom of his eyes slowly expanded. Beili Hongzhuang was really amazing. However, there were no inscription masters in Kanglan City. How could Beili Hongzhuang know that the inscription from Shui Haolang was bought in Kanglan? Huan Chuyu's eyes were deep in thoughts. The inscription master who had drawn this inscription had to have a certain relationship with Beili Hongzhuang. Otherwise, why would she have so many of the same kind? Vice President Sang, it seems that you have been mistaken. Huan Chuyu smiled faintly. He felt a victory when he saw Zhang Hongxi defeated by his students like this. Zhang Hongxi's expression was not good. The move of Beili Hongzhuang was different from anything they could have possibly thought of. There were so many inscriptions, and they all made people wonder whether it was authentic or not. However, as a vice president, he also knew that he could not come with any bad remarks. He could only let Huan Chuyu be proud. Jian Qingqiu and Zhang Hongxi looked at one another. According to the news they had gotten, Beili Hongzhuang was the ace of Kanglan College. Although there had already been a battle, no one knew her real strength, as Lu Jinglin never really got to put up a fight against her. Now it would seem that this Beili Hongzhuang was not a simple character. Hongzhuang, are you giving these inscriptions to us? Cui Haoyan's face was filled with shock. Although her actions had already explained her thoughts, he still couldn't help but ask. After all, the value of an inscription was much more expensive than that of the medications. Such an expensive thing, could they accept it just like that? Beili Hongzhuang was casual and her beautiful face was adorned with a smile, of course. Hongzhuang, this thing is too expensive, we can't. Dongfang Yu felt that they could not accept such an expensive thing. Not waiting for Dongfang Yu to finish his words, Beili Hongzhuang directly interrupted, everyone here is my good friend, so just accept it. It's just that, Dongfang Yu was somewhat embarrassed. Even ordinary inscriptions were hard to get your hands on. What's more, the effect of this inscription was already so good, it felt weird accepting it just like that. Beili Hongzhuang waved her hand, this inscription is really not worth much money. Don't feel bad about it. Also, it is good to have the inscription for the next round of the tournament. Hearing this, Dongfang Yu could not help but nod on behalf of himself and the others. In fact, the next round of the tournament was the most important. The inscription played a huge role and would allow them to get better results in the tournament. Xia Jiqing was not sure what to say at this moment in time. She could only say that she was happy that she was friends with such a local tyrant. Zhang Yinfeng and the others looked at the inscription in their hands. Their hearts were full of gratitude towards Beili Hongzhuang. If it was changed to another person, it would be impossible to be as generous as Beili Hongzhuang. However, this scene was not the same for the cultivators of Beihai College. Everyone knows that inscriptions are valuable, but Beili Hongzhuang was giving them away so easily, so annoying. Then they thought about how Beili Hongzhuang had not cared about giving away the inscription in Wubao Pavilion to Gong Xiaoqin. Back then they thought that she was being overly generous intentionally. But now they saw that Beili Hongzhuang was not just generous, she simply did not care about inscriptions. Shui Haolang was the richest person in their team, but a single inscription of his made him so proud. Although he said that the inscription was not expensive, seeing his behavior, it was still not as cheap as he claimed. However, when seeing Beili Hongzhuang, one could truly see the gap that existed in their finances. This was like the inn where the wannabe local tyrant met a real local tyrant. My God, I thought that Kanglan College was barren land, I did not expect that the students were so rich. It's good to be a teammate with this Beili Hongzhuang. Being able to be given an inscription just like that when they sell at such a high price. That Xue Haolang from Beihai College was truly an idiot, bragging about his inscription was nothing but a joke. In fact, Xue Haolang's previous arrogance had caused many to feel dissatisfaction. Although it was good, was there a need to show off like that? It was as if he was the richest man in the world, but Bailey Hongzhuang directly hit him in the face. Feeling everyone's eyes on him, Xue Haolang's face was also ugly, but he was unable to say anything. His elders had taken 3 inscriptions at the auction. Only ghosts knew how Bailey Hongzhuang had managed to come up with so many of them. Moreover, as Bailey Hongzhuang said, this inscription was not expensive. He had never used it before because he had felt that with the price, it could not be very good, but he had never expected the results to be so differently. When everyone asked him, he was naturally vain, and wanted to brag, saying that the price of the inscription was very good. He had never expected that all this would be the same as making a wedding dress for Bailey Hongzhuang, allowing her to show off instead. No, he had already shown that the inscription had a lot of value, but he was unable to say anything now. The most important thing is that even if he did say something now, then no one would believe him. He did not understand. The inscription master who made this inscription had an amazing skill. Why was the price of the inscription then so low? Although there is a lot of money in the world, who did not want more money? If Bailey Hongzhuang knew the thoughts of Xue Haolang, she would be unable to hold her laughter. She had no idea about how much it was worth or even what it did when she put it up for sale. She never really cared about the price. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows raised slightly and a smile appeared on her lips as she looked at Xue Haolang and casually said, "I heard that someone wanted to destroy their weapon." When the voice fell, Xue Haolang's face turned purple. He had never expected that he would dig such a trap for himself. Originally this was not a problem, who would have imagined that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to take things to this step? For some time he was unaware of what to do. Xia Jiqing and the others held interested expressions on their faces. "Xue Haolang, you still don't want to destroy your weapon." For Xue Haolang to act like a villain, they had long since been used to it. Now that there was a chance to return some of their grievances, they would never allow Xue Haolang to escape. Cui Haoyan stared at Xue Haolang. This guy won because of an inscription, he had also been ridiculing them time and time again. It was simply intolerable. "Xue Haolang, were you not very vocal before? Have you suddenly turned mute? Once the weapon is destroyed, his combat power would weaken tremendously, and he really regretted the words he said before." Lu Jinglin's face was also ugly. If she had stopped him before, things would not end up like this. In the current situation there was simply no way to escape. From the beginning to the end, Xiao Lanmei had the attitude that nothing mattered to him. It was as if Xue Haolang was not his teammate, and no matter what he did, it had nothing to do with him. Suddenly Xue Haolang's eyes turned bright, he suddenly thought of an excellent method, his ugly face slowly looked better. "How can you be so sure that it is the same inscription? Maybe it just looks the same but the use is very different." Xue Haolang never believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to come up with so many inscriptions at once. The value of inscriptions were incredibly high, let alone so many of the same kind. He was sure that only an inscription master could come up with that many inscriptions of the same kind at one time. What's more, many inscriptions looked similar but were fundamentally different. Previously he was only scared by the inscriptions that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken out, at this moment he thought that he could blacken Bailey Hongzhuang's reputation. With the voice of Xue Haolang falling, the atmosphere of the scene changed again. As a result, no one could know who was speaking the truth. Cui Haoyan and the others also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, they did not know the specifics of this inscription. However, they had absolute trust in Bailey Hongzhuang. If she said it was the same inscription as the one Xue Haolang had, then they would believe her without a doubt. Xue Haolang proudly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, he would like to see how she was going to continue being so arrogant. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a slight sneer as she said, "What if I prove it?" She was the most familiar with her own inscriptions and the effects of these inscriptions. However, with the practice she had experienced, the inscriptions in her hands might actually be even better than the one in the hands of Xue Haolang. Xue Haolang wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang panic, but what he saw was her complete confidence and calmness, causing his heart to feel unhappy. Damn it! Since the first time they met Bailey Hongzhuang, they had never been able to understand this woman. Normally every time they have been in a conflict it was this woman who has solved it. Was she really so good at psychological fights? After eating a loss, Xue Haolang also learned how to be smart and did not continue to be smart. You should first prove that it is the right one, just a few pictures won't fool me. At a time like this, Xue Haolang turned out to be like this. He really doesn't know what it is like to die. Little Black screamed out, this guy was simply too much. He is just causing more and more trouble, but he will fall into despair soon. Little White's eyes were filled with a smile, their master was not going to let them go easily. Xue Haolang was causing so much trouble, and their master had never been soft. For Xue Haolang's actions, they did not take her by surprise. Even in the coffin he would not understand his mistake. In this case, she did not mind ensuring that he really died. Bailey Haolang nodded to Cui Haoyan and smiled, Cui Haoyan, if you don't mind, please engrave the inscription into the weapon and show Xue Haolang the truth. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang, Cui Haoyan nodded with no problems. Previously Xue Haolang had been ridiculing him, he couldn't stand it anymore. Now that he had a chance, it was possible for him to return the ridicule, there was no chance he would miss it. Xia Jiqing and the others had expressions of watching a drama unfold in front of them. Xue Haolang was going to get a good lesson. Zhang Yunfeng and the others were very calm and relaxed. Bailey Hongzhuang had never made mistakes before. They just waited to see the good show. The scene attracted everyone's attention as no one knew if Bailey Hongzhuang was correct or not. After seeing the scene, the people from Beihai College could not help but worry. The moment they could have been relaxing was now being used on inscriptions. Bailey Hongzhuang seemed so confident. If it was really true and Cui Haoyan proved everything that she said was true, then Xue Haolang was truly in a pickle. Xue Haolang's eyes landed on Cui Haolang. He would lie if he said that he was not worried, and his palms began to sweat. Cui Haoyan looked at Xue Haolang with a provocative look, and directly added the inscription from Bailey Hongzhuang on the weapon. There was a flaming red light that blinded them all, before the inscription that had originally been printed on the inscription paper was now merged onto the weapon. Everyone could not help but feel that the inscription seemed to move slightly, and it appeared that the weapon was now shining slightly. At this moment, everyone was certain that the inscriptions that Bailey Hongzhuang had brought forth were real, not fake at all. However, they still did not know if the inscription of Bailey Hongzhuang had the same effect as Xue Haolang's. It seems that it is a real inscription. I think that the inscription is the same as the one Xue Haolang has, otherwise she would not take the initiative to say so. Then if it is true, did that not prove that the people of Beihai College went to Kanglan City? When the words came out, the people could not help but change their expressions slightly. If it was truly like this, then they had made quite a few bad tricks behind the backs of the Kanglan College members. Just as everyone was busy discussing the effect of the inscription, Xue Haolang's face was turning pale. Because the inscription was exactly the same as his own. Even if they weren't the same, they were simply too similar. At this moment, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had recognized his inscription, hence asking for permission to see it. It did not take long before Cui Haoyan had successfully branded the inscription onto his weapon, and he could not help but gaze at Xue Haolang, his eyes lit up in triumph. Xue Haolang, let me try and test this to see whether or not it is the same as your inscription. Next Cui Haoyan's inner energy surged directly into the weapon, the temperature rose and the inscription on his weapon shone with a red light. Cui Haoyan slashed out with the sword and saw how the fiery red sword cut out, a long gash of burnt ground was left in its wake. Seeing this scene, everyone erupted in surprise. This was almost exactly the same as Xue Haolang's inscription. Wow! The power of this inscription is so strong, it has such a strong flaming effect. So with this inscription you don't have to worry about your opponent. If you are around the same strength, an inscription like this one can easily determine the victory. Everyone's faces was filled with shock, this inscription was truly magnificent. If they could get one themselves, their combat ability would also improve. For some time, all of them envied the teammates of Bailey Hongzhuang. It was awesome to be friends with a local tyrant like her. Why didn't they know someone like Bailey Hongzhuang, so that good stuff like inscriptions landed on their heads? The students of Lingyin College had been disdainful towards Bailey Hongzhuang, but at this moment the eyes that looked at her changed. She was the kind of person anyone wanted to befriend. There was no one who managed to stay calm, even Nangong Xiujia and the others were shocked. After seeing the attack of Cui Haoyan, their eyes also turned shocked. This inscription was truly magnificent, it could increase their combat ability by so much. However, no matter how amazing the inscription was, it was a fact that their relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang was like fire and water, even if she had so many inscriptions, they could not buy any of them. Nangong Yuer's face was filled with displeasure. What's so great about them? It is just a few inscriptions, the inscriptions from Wubao Pavilion are also very good. Her inscription came from Wubao Pavilion, but it had taken her a lot of effort to get the inscription. The inscription masters were noble existences, and they did not care about anyone's face at all. Also, the inscription masters of Wubao Pavilion would much rather study inscriptions, they had no actual interest in selling them. They would just occasionally place inscriptions at the Wubao Pavilion for the sake of selling them. She was a princess and naturally wanted the inscription masters to draw one that suited her the most. It was all because her father helped her prepare a lot of materials for inscriptions that she managed to convince an inscription master to create an inscription for her. So far she had spent a lot of time showing off this inscription. Because of this she did not care about the inscriptions of Bailey Hongzhuang. She just felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was using it to stand out from the crowd. Nangong Xiujia and Nangong Yujin looked at one another. Nangong Yuer had always been favored by their father. Only because of this favoritism was she able to get an inscription designed for her. The two of them had not been treated so well. Originally they had planned on asking an inscription master to draw an inscription for them these few days. Unfortunately the situation with Bailey Hongzhuang had caused their father to become furious and he naturally did not help them any longer. As for when they would have another chance, no one knew. Chapter 741, Not Destroying It. Cui Haoyan did not expect that his weapon would have such an outstanding effect after branding the inscription onto it. The power was more than just a little stronger than before. This kind of flame was very hard to guard against. Apart from avoiding it, it was also very troublesome when one faced it in a direct confrontation. He could faintly feel that this inscription was stronger than Xue Haolang's. Recently he had always been admiring Bailey Hongzhuang, he could not imagine how she was doing all this. The kind of things that were difficult for any ordinary person were a breeze for Bailey Hongzhuang. Now he could not help but think that when something strange happened with Bailey Hongzhuang, it was not so difficult to accept it any longer. Because Bailey Hongzhuang was not an ordinary person. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had married Di Beichen, this was already an amazing feat in the eyes of ordinary people. Xue Haolang, it would seem that our inscription is the exact same. Cui Haoyan's face was smug and he was smiling with ridicule. He had been humiliated by Xue Haolang before, and now it was time for him to fight back. Now, Xue Haolang could find no way to fight back. Everything proved that Bailey Hongzhuang was saying the truth, but when it came to destroying his own weapon, it was simply impossible. All he had done so far was to achieve good results in the college tournament. If his weapon was destroyed, how could he possibly achieve good results? The lips of Bailey Hongzhuang rose into a shallow but charming smile as she said, "You're a man of your word. Xue Haoling, you aren't going to admit your promise from earlier. There are so many people present, if you don't complete your promise then you will lose all your reputation." Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Xue Haoling was naturally unwilling to destroy his weapon. However, she was never willing to be soft to her enemy. Xue Haoling's face was ugly. This Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have guessed his thoughts. The way she spoke left him no way of retreating. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang was trying to force him to destroy his weapon. Once the weapon was broken, then his next battle would not be easy. What is the difference between this and giving up the tournament? He looked around, his gaze slightly on the crowd. It was difficult to choose what to do. "Xue Haoling, just say that you can't do it. Then I can look down on you." At this time Xia Jiqing naturally didn't mind falling out with him. Xue Haoling was a guy who had caused them many problems. It was hard to have a chance to humiliate him, now she would not miss it. After witnessing this scene, Zhang Hongxi could not help but think that Xue Haoling was an idiot. Many things could be done, but he directly dug a hole and jumped into it by himself. He did not understand why he would ever say that he would destroy his own weapon. Now that it had been said, he had no other option than to do what he promised. After a long time, Xue Haoling finally said, "You said this to fool me intentionally. I will not destroy my weapon." He had made a decision to not destroying his weapon. What could Bailey Hongzhuang do about it? Even if everyone was making fun of him now, as long as he got good results in the tournament, all these negative comments would vanish. Chapter 742, Bailey Hongzhuang is powerful. When Xue Haoling said so shamelessly, even the crowd who was observing was stunned. The face of Xue Haoling was simply too thick, wasn't it? Even if you are shameless, to speak out so confidently like Xue Haoling did, this was not something an ordinary person was capable of doing. Cui Haoyan was also angered into laughing as he speechlessly watched Xue Haoling before finally asking, "Xue Haoling, are you even a man?" Xue Haoling's face was ugly. No matter what he said now, he would just cause people to despise him even more, so it was best to just stay quiet. Next, Xue Haoling walked straight back to the resting place. He had decided to not do anything before the end of the college tournament. This Xue Haoling is really shameless. I did not expect Beihai College to behave like this. I only heard about how bad the Kanglan College is, but now it seems that it is really the cultivators of Beihai College who are trash. The cultivators of Beihai College are really bad. The hearts of the audience were silent for a while. They could not understand how Xue Haoling was able to say such words with a proud face. If it was them, they would never be able to remain behind after such a loss of face. However, when looking at Xue Haoling, it seemed like he did not care. Cui Haoyan was even more annoyed. "This guy is too shameless, I will destroy his weapon for him." Seeing that Cui Haoyan was about to move, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped him. "Cui Haoyan, don't worry. Xue Haoling has made up his mind. Even if he was forced to destroy his weapon, he would not do it. Also, he'd just say that we are undermining the test, since he won't be able to join the next round without a weapon, and that would be very troublesome." The face of Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. For Xue Haoling, who had no bottom line, it was very likely that he would do something like this. Hearing this, Cui Haoyan could not help but frown. Should we just let him act like this? Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. His heart is already chaotic. Even if he participates in the next round, he will have a hard time getting good results. He has already ruined his own reputation. This might be even better than ruining a weapon. If Xue Haoling had just ruined the weapon, he would be respected and people would be optimistic about him. But his actions had proved that he was a real villain, and everyone was very disgusted with him. It is difficult to understand what Xue Haolang was thinking. It was better to give Xue Haolang a bit of space, to make them seem generous. Hongzhuang is not incorrect, Cui Haoyan, you should not care. Gong Xiaoqing's voice slowly sounded, but his heart was once more filled with admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was really nothing that an ordinary woman could compare to. Whether it is strength or wisdom, it was far from ordinary people. Others were always at a disadvantage. After Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, there was a bit of understanding in the rest. She was really too powerful. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Cui Haoyan understood it and immediately nodded, I understand. Xia Jiqing and the others were no longer hesitant and immediately used the inscriptions given to them by Bailey Hongzhuang. This way they'd perform better in the tournament. Chapter 743, Opponents of the Second Round. Huan Chuyu looked at Song Hongxi with a smile and said slowly, Vice President Song, the hearts of your student are not so good. Now that the college exchange tournament was ongoing, the behavior of the students represented the colleges, and Xue Haolang's actions were the same as losing face for the entire Beihai College. Such a great opportunity, naturally, Huan Chuyu would not miss it. The face of Song Hongxi was quite ugly. What Xue Haolang had done was not very good. But no matter what, Xue Haolang had already acted like this and nothing could change it. When listening to the ridiculing words of Huan Chuyu, Song Hongxi was also quite angry. In the past, he was always the one who laughed at the Kanglan College. When had this been turned around? Vice President Huan, this was because of your good students. If it wasn't because of her, how could Xue Haolang fall to such a situation? It seems that the students of Kanglan College have only learned about using tricks these last 3 years. Saying Song Hongxi starting an argument, Huan Chuyu was not in a hurry, and instead a gentle smile hung on his face. It only worked because he was stupid enough. When he said this, Huan Chuyu was not interested in paying any more attention to Song Hongxi. This old guy had always liked to blame others for his faults. This had been the case for many years, and Huan Chuyu already knew about the temperament of the other guy. But Song Hongxi was filled with hatred. Huan Chuyu actually said that his student was stupid. Just as Song Hongxi was about to retort, Jian Qingqiu looked at him directly and shook his head unnoticeably, blocking the words he wanted to say. Jian Qingqiu's mood was foul. He had planned on insulting Kanglan College, but things were not going his way. Now, because of the Beihai College, the brilliance of Kanglan College had been brought to light, so he was feeling immensely depressed. If the Kanglan College students were allowed to continue like this, he would really become angry. When he felt the eyes of Jian Qingqiu, Song Hongxi dared no longer say anything, although he was fuming with anger on the inside. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba looked at each other, their eyes filled with a smile. They had not been this happy for a long time. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu had been using their identity to press down on the two of them, now they could finally stay proud. The hour of break soon passed and after a bit of time, everyone had been restored quite a bit. The second round of battle will now begin. With the sound of Jian Qingqiu's voice, the cultivators who had advanced to the second round slowly stood up and looked in the direction of the stage. To determine who you are to battle in the second round, we will also use a lottery. 5 students will be randomly selected to start the lottery. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in place. No matter who her opponent was, she did not care. Her thoughts were that soldiers would block the army, earth would block the water. Xia Jiqing was holding her long whip, her heart filled with excitement. She had already tested it. After adding the inscription, her attack power was much stronger than before. Soon, everyone had been drawn. Xia Jiqing against Nangong Yuer, Gong Xiaoqing against Xue Haolang, Dongfang Yu against Nangong Xiujie. Bailey Hongzhuang against Nan Yangzi. Xiao Lanxian against Jin Xinyu. Lin Yinghao, the vice president of Lingyin College, slowly read the announced opponents. Some of those who heard it were happy, while others were worried. Chapter 744, Beili Hongzhuang, come on. Fortunately this time the draw was not made by the students. Now, please, Xia Jiqing and Nangong Yuer go to the arena. Lin Yinghao's face held a slight smile. Nangong Yuer was very strong, and although Xia Jiqing held some strength, but she was definitely not on Nangong Yuer's strength. Because Nangong Yuer had broken through the innate realm. In the second round of the competition, the stakes were much higher than they were in the first round, but even so, no one was giving up. Jiqing go on, the cultivators of Kanglin College were all cheering for Xia Jiqing. Although they felt that Nangong Yuer was strong, as long as she could fight back it was already very good. Xia Jiqing nodded solemnly and said, I will. Nangong Yuer was faster than Xia Jiqing and her body flashed as she jumped directly into the arena. However, the words of Nangong Yuer surprised everyone. Beili Hongzhuang, you come up. When the words came out, everyone looked at Nangong Yuer. They didn't understand if she was only trying to stir up trouble. I want to compete against you. Nangong Yuer continued to stress this point. She had originally hoped that she would directly draw Beili Hongzhuang as an opponent. She had not expected it to be Xia Jiqing. The strength of Xia Jiqing was not strong enough to defeat her, but it was a waste of her time to fight her. She couldn't wait to fight Beili Hongzhuang. Not for any other reason, only because of the unknown relationship between Mo Junyue and Beili Hongzhuang. At this point, she could not let go of Beili Hongzhuang. Lin Yinghao was stunned for a moment. What was the third princess doing? Nangong Yuer, your opponent is Xia Jiqing. Lin Yinghao tried to persuade her. Nangong Yuer was unmoved. I know, but I want to fight against Beili Hongzhuang. Noisy. Jian Qingqiu's brows became slightly wrinkled. He understood Nangong Yuer's messy temper. However, the entire Lingyin College relied on the royal family. Therefore he had to turn a blind eye to Nangong Yuer's temper. However, he had not expected that she would make such a big fuss at this college tournament. Originally, with the strength of Nangong Yuer, she would win the battle with Xia Jiqing and advance to the next round, but she had to challenge Beili Hongzhuang. Beili Hongzhuang was the ace of Kanglin College. She would not be easy to beat. Huan Yulong was in a very bad mood because he had been punished for leaving the Kanglin College group outside the gates. Now he could not even participate in the tournament. At this moment, he just heard the request of Nangong Yuer. Although he did not know why she asked for such a request, he was very indulgent towards Nangong Yuer. Thinking of this, Huan Yulong immediately said, Principal, the opponent is determined by lottery. Since Nangong Yuer has such a request, as long as Beili Hongzhuang is willing, this is also a good idea. If Beili Hongzhuang does not dare accept, then that is it. Beili Hongzhuang's brows furrowed slightly. She had never seen this Huan Yulong before. She had not expected him to be so against her. It was really strange. Chapter 745, Beili Hongzhuang should fight. Hongzhuang, who is this person? Why is the way he speaks so ugly? Xia Jiqing frowned. The way the other person said those things, it sounded as if Beili Hongzhuang was afraid of Nangong Yuer if she declined the challenge. It seemed like it was giving Beili Hongzhuang a choice, when in fact there was no choice at all. The eyes of Beili Hongzhuang shone with wisdom as she looked at the person. This person should be the mentor of Lingyin College. I heard that we were blocked because a mentor wanted to embarrass us. It is very likely that he is that person. Xia Jiqing was stunned. She had also heard this rumor from the mouth of the Beihai College practitioners. The other party obviously wanted to ridicule them with this opportunity, so they also knew from the beginning what was going on. Jian Qingqiu's expression was hard to describe. As a principal, what he hated the most was when things did not go as expected. Originally he had intended to just ignore Nan Gongyue, and let her challenge whomever she wanted without accepting it. However, now things had changed, since Ruan Yulong was actually a mentor of the Lingyin College. Bailey Hongzhuang, do you have the guts to face me? Nan Gongyue's chin was slightly raised, and her expression was filled with arrogance. There was a provocative look within her brows. She was confident that everything about her, including her background and her strength, was better than Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter what kind of fox-like seduction method she used to seduce Mo Yinjue, she would never let her shine. What problems are there between Bailey Hongzhuang and the third princess? Why is she so fixated on Bailey Hongzhuang? I don't know. Maybe it is because an outstanding woman can't handle another outstanding woman and wants to deal with her. You don't know about this, but I heard that Bailey Hongzhuang is the wife of Mu Yinjue. This is naturally the reason for her hostility. When an informed person said the real reason behind her hostility, the others were filled with amazement. This was truly surprising. Really? Of course it is real. I personally saw Mo Gongzi call Bailey Hongzhuang his lady on the first tower that day. Compared to the arrogance and provocation of Nan Gongyue, Bailey Hongzhuang still looked calm and tranquil. Since the third princess want to test my strength, then naturally I do not mind. Jian Qingqiu could not help but look at Huan Chuyu with a little helplessness. Old Huan, this matter, what should we do? Huan Chuyu still had a gentle look on his face, and when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang he casually said, since both of them are willing, just let them go. Jian Qingqiu nodded slightly, his expression turning better. Since Nan Gongyue and Bailey Hongzhuang both agree, they will fight against one another. Xia Jiqing will fight against Nan Yangzi in the 4th round. Boss, go show her. Xia Jiqing's eyes were sparkled with conviction. She was worried as to the reason why Nan Gongyue suddenly challenged the boss. She always felt that she was quite stupid. Hongzhuang, you have to be careful. Zhang Yunfeng and the others voiced their warnings, their eyes filled with worry. Even so, they firmly believed in the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang. So far, every performance that Bailey Hongzhuang had made them believe in her unconditionally. They didn't care who Nan Gongyue was, as long as she was an opponent, she would be defeated. Chapter 746, Grabbed Her. Man. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and slowly walked towards the stage under everyone's eyes. Nangong Xiujue and Nangong Yujin looked at one another. It seemed that their previous words had truly stimulated Nan Gongyue. Because of this, she would act so willful in this college exchange. The strength of our sister is very good, it will be easy for her to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang. Nangong Yujin looked indifferent. Even he had to praise Nan Gongyue's talent for cultivation. Nan Gongyue is younger than him, but she was stronger than him. Because of this, their father was more fond of her than him. Nangong Xiujia looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's back indifferently. I wanted to personally solve the problem with Bailey Hongzhuang, now it seems like I don't need to be the one shooting. This group of wastes from Kanglan College are not our opponents, even if they entered the 2nd round of the tournament, it was just by luck. Nangong Xiujia's eyes were filled with disdain. It was this group of wastes which had made him lose face in First Tower. It was simply unforgivable. If he had known that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were from Kanglan College, then he would have definitely crippled them. Nangong Yujin nodded his head. Although he did not advance to the 2nd round, this was not a big deal for him. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked onto the stage, standing in front of Nan Gongyue. Nan Gongyue was wearing a purple and pink skirt. She was a pretty young lady with quite a bit of charm. She looked cute, but there was arrogance written all over her face. Bailey Hongzhuang was much more mature and elegant. Her face was cold like ice, making people feel unable to get close. However, such a Bailey Hongzhuang was even more unattainable. Bailey Hongzhuang, I can see you have a bit of guts, Nangong Yuer smiled coldly. But you will soon regret your choice. Bailey Hongzhuang was not moving. I have never regretted a decision I made. I don't know why you hate me so much. So far she was still unaware of why Nangong Yuer was so hostile towards her. If it was for Nangong Xiujie, then it made no sense as he should make the attack on her himself. Would he really need his sister to come out for him? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not even know the reason for her anger, Nangong Yuer was fuming mad. This was a one-of-a-kind grievance. Her not knowing was simply just showing that she did not care about her existence at all, it was naked contempt. However, the doubtful look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face was not likely to be an act. Did this woman really not know that they are rivals? You dared to grab my man, so you are destined to pay the price. Nangong Yuer was surprisingly straightforward. She directly said those overbearing words, and did not care what impact it might have on her. Grabbed her, man. Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat stunned and couldn't help but think about Di Beichen. This guy should not have met Nangong Yuer before. This guy went to Tiangang's sect during this time, so how could he possibly appear in the Qing dynasty and cause trouble for her? When it was said, Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. This was an explosive news. Chapter 747, Enemies Meet, Green with Envy, is this it? The charm of Di Beichen sure travels far. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but feel stunned, but she had to admit that Di Beichen was very attractive. But this is the Qing dynasty. When did Di Beichen come here? Zhang Yunfeng and the others were also puzzled. They had racked their brains to find a reason for Nangong Yuer's hatred, but they would never have thought that this was the reason. Dongfang Yu and the others were silent for quite some time, they did not know what to say. In the case of a love rival, the battle between women was much more intense than it was between men. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were also feeling helpless. This straightforward personality of Nangong Yuer was truly troublesome. She was a royal princess, and had to uphold the royal name, but what was said today completely threw away their face. Jian Qingqiu, Lin Yinghao, and even Huan Chuyu were sitting above the platform, and all of them were feeling rather strange. Previously Huan Chuyu had thought it was a tactic that Lingyin College had planned. He had not expected that this was an emotional dispute between juniors. They really didn't know what to say. Nangong Yuer, Hongzhuang has already married, what man has been grabbed from you? It is clear that you are trying to grab her man. Xia Jiqing had to say what she thought, this was simply a joke, the truth had to be revealed. Just by looking at Nangong Yuer's arrogance, she knew that Nangong Yuer was the one stalking. Di Beichen would never look at her. Nangong Yuer was already completely ignoring her face, and with Xia Jiqing's words, it was clear that she was jealous of Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone in the crowd looked at one another, they had not expected that the news they heard would be true. The cultivators of Lingyin College had a difficult time to accept it. Nangong Yuer had always been the goddess in their minds. Bailey Hongzhuang had already married, yet Nangong Yuer even wanted to grab her man. This made them unable to continue seeing Nangong Yuer as their goddess. When she listened to Xia Jiqing's words, Nangong Yuer's face was really ugly. It seemed that what her third brother told her was actually the truth. Mo Yunjue turned out to be married to Bailey Hongzhuang. And she had liked him for so long, but she had not heard even the slightest whisper about it. At the thought of this, the eyes of Nangong Yuer also turned a bit red. Regardless of how good the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue was, the man she fancied had to be hers. Bailey Hongzhuang, even if you have a relationship with him now, he is destined to be my man. Nangong Yuer raised her chin high, civilians like Bailey Hongzhuang had no right to compete with her. Bailey Hongzhuang was carefree. Although she did not know the relationship between Di Beichen and Nangong Yue, she was sure that this was all just wishful thinking of Nangong Yue. At this time, a black figure appeared near the martial arts platform. A man that was tall and handsome stepped forward. His appearance caught many people's attention. Mo Gongzi. Seeing Mo Yinjue, Cui Haoyan and the others showed a smile on their faces. They were very fond of this friend they had found in the Qing dynasty. Mo Yinjue smiled slightly before he went to Cui Haoyan and the others. Chapter 748, Might have a misunderstanding. Mo Gongzi, how come you are here? Xia Jiqing asked with a happy smile on her face. I heard that today was the day for the tournament, so I came to cheer for you. It's just that there were some problems in the restaurant that delayed me a bit, so I am late. Listening to the words of Mo Yinjue, the faces of all the others filled with smiles. Even though Mo Yinjue was a member of the Qing dynasty, he did not cheer for Lingyin College, but cheered for them instead. This was indeed shocking. Cui Haoyan and Dong Fangyu looked at one another. As a man, they were able to discern that Mo Yinjue had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. If this was not the case, there was no need for Mo Yinjue to offend the second prince for them. In fact, everything Mo Yinjue has done has been for Bailey Hongzhuang. They believed that Mo Yinjue had come for the sake of helping Bailey Hongzhuang, so for that reason, he was also their good friend. Hey, that's Mo Gongzi from the first tower. He must have come to cheer for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang is a student of Kanglan College. I didn't know she was actually the wife of Mo Gongzi. It's very fortunate. I don't know what Mo Gongzi thinks. The third princess is also very good, but he seems to be unmoved. I think the third princess is too arrogant. Do you really want to marry someone like her? On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang is good, much more suitable as a wife. Everyone had their own opinion, but they were all filled with interest towards this love triangle. Gong Xiaoqing and the others had their expressions changing after hearing the words of the surrounding people. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Xia Jiqing and Zhang Yunfeng looked at each other. The man that Nangong Yue liked was Mo Yinjue. If this is the case, then this misunderstanding is really too big. Mo Yinjue's face held a slight smile, and his eyes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was always proud and strong. He believed that there would be a good performance this time at the tournament. Almost at the exact moment that Mo Yinjue arrived, Nangong Yue noticed him. She also saw that the man who was in her heart only had eyes for Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yinjue had not seemed to even notice her existence. The smile on his face was solely because of Bailey Hongzhuang. Since the first tower opened in the imperial capital, she had seen Mo Yinjue many times, but it was immensely rare to see him smile. Most often, Mo Yinjue's face held no expression. She always thought that he disliked smiling. Now it seems that he did not dislike smiling, he just disliked smiling at her. A crazy jealousy swept through her heart. She was going to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. What she can't get, she will never let others have either. Bailey Hongzhuang could also feel the killing intent that started bursting out of Nangong Yue's body, but she was still not nervous or felt panic. In fact, she had been the target of many different killing intents throughout her life. The killing intent displayed by Nangong Yue was still quite ordinary. However, the fact that Nangong Yue wanted to kill her was out of her expectations. The tournament had always banned killing their opponents, but it seemed that these rules did not matter to the third princess. She completely ignored all rules and did whatever she wanted to do. Thinking about this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help to show a bit of disgust in her eyes. Chapter 749, Nangong Yue. At the second layer of the Red Realm, she was not disgusted with people who had killing intent. But she was full of disgust towards Nan Gongyue, a person who only knew about her own interests and completely ignored the lives of others. It is like, just because she was born in the royal family, everything was fine, even if she trampled upon others. Begin. When the judge's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Nan Gongyue immediately began fighting. Nan Gongyue's eyes were glaring at Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as you admit defeat and promise to leave Mo Yinjue, I will let you go, how about that? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Mo Yinjue. When she thought about what had happened before in the first tower, and that Nan Gongyujin had whispered something to Nan Gongyue, it all made sense to her. The person that Nan Gongyue likes is Mo Yinjue, not Di Beichen. The mood of Bailey Hongzhuang improved a bit after understanding this. It's just Mo Yinjue and her. It seems to be a misunderstanding. The line of sight of Bailey Hongzhuang turned slightly as she glanced at Mo Yinjue, who was standing beneath the stage, before she looked at Nan Gongyue. She saw that Nan Gongyue was being arrogant, as if Bailey Hongzhuang should be extremely grateful for her to offer her this option. In fact, this was exactly what Nan Gongyue thought. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put away the thought of explaining the misunderstanding to her. Since Nan Gongyue believes so, then let her believe it. You think too much. The voice of Bailey Hongzhuang was very cold. Obviously she did not pay attention to the words of Nan Gongyue. For the arrogance of Nan Gongyue it was simply better to just defeat her. When she said this, Nan Gongyue's face turned ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to speak to her in such a way. It was simply unforgivable. Since you won't listen, I will fulfill your death wish. Nan Gongyue was gloomy. Usually this kind of person, who did not know good from bad, would end up dead soon. Bailey Hongzhuang still looked calm. Stop with all this nonsense, just begin fighting. She did not want to spend any more time on this boring situation, she wanted to end the fight as soon as possible. The so-called princess was nothing in her eyes. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to take the lead to challenge her, Nan Gongyue was so angry she began laughing. She did not expect that Kanglan College's ace was so stupid. The people also felt the sharp atmosphere on the stage, and their excitement grew stronger and stronger. It seemed this was a battle worth seeing. Bailey Hongzhuang is really stupid. She still dares to provoke Yue at this point in time. I am afraid that it will be impossible for her to walk down the stage in the future. Nan Gongjie smirked. What kind of temper Nan Gongyue had? It was quite obvious. From the moment she knew about the relationship between Mo Yinjue and Bailey Hongzhuang, she had sentenced Bailey Hongzhuang to death. On the stage the battle was about to begin. The strength within Nan Gongyue's body surged and the power of the second layer of the Red Realm exploded outwards. Feeling the steady breath and pulsating energy, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. The second layer of the Red Realm. The third princess has already broken through the second layer of the Red Realm. Oh my, the third princess has already broken through to the second layer of the Red Realm, her talent is so strong. This Bailey Hongzhuang is so unfortunate, her and the third princess are not at the same rank at all. Chapter 750, must undoubtedly win. When the strength exploded out of Nan Gongyue, almost everyone was certain that it was going to be her winning. To be able to break through to the second layer of the Red Realm at such a young age, her talent was outstanding. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly younger than Nan Gongyue, so she was definitely not the opponent of the third princess. Jian Qingqiu's eyes were also showing a touch of joy. Nan Gongyue was still a first-layer cultivator of the Red Realm earlier, he had not expected her to break through, it was really a surprise. As long as Nan Gongyue defeated Bailey Hongzhuang, then Kanglan College was doomed to achieve bad results. However, compared to the excitement of the Lingyin College, the Kanglan College were unnaturally calm. This is really a group of frogs in a well. The second layer of the Red Realm, and she is sure to win. Our Hongzhuang is a monster in disguise. Xia Jiqing's expression was lit with excitement. She knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had also reached the second layer of the Red Realm. So what if Nangong Yuer was talented? Bailey Hongzhuang was even more talented. Wait for it, Hongzhuang will definitely win. Zhang Yinfeng's eyes were filled with trust. Even from the beginning they had never been worried about Bailey Hongzhuang being defeated. Nangong Xiujia and the others wanted to see the panic in the faces of Kanglan College's students, however there was no reaction at all. A bit of doubt appeared in their hearts. Could it be that they think that Bailey Hongzhuang still has a chance of winning? Nangong Xiujia thought about the talent of Nangong Yuer, which could basically dwarf all others of the same age, not to mention that Bailey Hongzhuang was younger than Nangong Yuer. Listening to the words of Nangong Xiujia, Nanong Yujin immediately dismissed the thoughts. Second brother, don't joke, it is impossible. I hear that Bailey Hongzhuang should have inherited something in the ruins. Maybe. Second brother, don't worry, they are just shocked. They haven't had a chance to react yet. Nangong Yujin's face was filled with a smile. When the principal had praised Yuer and said she was a genius, he knew she wouldn't be defeated. It is impossible to create a cultivator who was more powerful than Nangong Yuer in such a poor place as the Kanglan College. He was certain that the Kanglan College would fail here, in the second round of the competition. Zhang Hongxi could not help but look at Huan Chuyu. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really stupid. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang had not agreed, it was impossible for the Lingyin College to force her into fighting. As a result, there would have been a chance for her to advance in the next round. But because of her willfulness, she could only stop here. However, when Zhang Hongxi saw that Huan Chuyu was still looking calm, as if he wasn't too shocked by what he saw, he was surprised. But he could not help but sneer, pretender. Even now, he can still pretend to be calm. When the results were out, he would see how Huan Chuyu would still pretend. However, in the next moment, the power of Bailey Hongzhuang was also released, and everyone present was shocked once more. Even Zhang Hongxi was shocked. Chapter 751, You Are Not My Opponent's Second Layer of the Red Realm. A power that was not weaker than Nangong Yuer burst out of Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Everyone seemed to have an illusion that this strength was even stronger than Nangong Yuer's. How is this possible? Everyone took a deep breath. Nangong Yuer was already acknowledged as a genius, how did Bailey Hongzhuang become one too? Not to mention, she was younger than Nangong Yuer. Does that not mean that Bailey Hongzhuang's talent was better than Nangong Yuer? At the thought of this, everyone looked at one another, unaware of what to say. Nangong Yuer looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. She couldn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang actually had such a cultivation base. It must be said that she just broke through the second layer within the last few days. Wasn't it saying that Bailey Hongzhuang had a better cultivation talent than her? Instinctively, Nangong Yuer felt it was unacceptable, and her arrogance dropped by a few points. This way, they were at the same starting point, and no one knew how the battle would end. The look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. It seemed that she did not think much about the second layer of the Red Realm. In contrast, Nangong Yuer's mood was getting worse and worse. This kind of attitude was simply annoying. Even if you have reached the second layer of the Red Realm, you are not my opponent. Soon Nangong Yuer found her confidence again. She was a royal princess. The royal family was someone that other people simply couldn't compare with. It was impossible to compare her to other geniuses that were born in her generation. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferently at Nangong Yuer. You say so much nonsense. When she said this, Nangong Yuer got even angrier. Didn't this damn woman understand the gap between them? Since you want to die, I will let you die. Nangong Yuer was unstoppable, her body was rushing forward, her strength surging majestically in her hand, and she did not hesitate to blast it at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bang! The fists and legs were constantly meeting one another, shockwaves rippling through the air. Nangong Yuer was not being merciful at all, every attack was unrelentingly aimed for Bailey Hongzhuang's vital parts. Boom! There was another collision with the two's fists. Nangong Yuer felt as if she had been punching on iron, and her hand was aching in pain. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang was not moving, as if she had not been affected by the impact at all. Damn it! How could Bailey Hongzhuang's strength be so domineering? Nangong Yuer was not satisfied in her heart, and she refused to admit it. You are too brutal, she sneered. At least I am not like you, Bailey Hongzhuang answered. Her words did not leave any face for Nangong Yuer, causing her face to turn ugly. She regretted that she could not immediately shred Bailey Hongzhuang. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang did not give Nangong Yuer a chance to retreat. Her tyrannical and fierce attacks continued to rain down upon Nangong Yuer's body. Under the offensive of Bailey Hongzhuang, Nangong Yuer stepped back. She was unable to resist this kind of attack. Seeing this scene, the look of the observing people had changed a bit. Who could have thought of the fact that it was Nangong Yuer who was at a disadvantage? Chapter 752, Isn't she too stupid? Stop chasing me. Nangong Yuer's body had retreated a few steps, trying to keep a distance from Bailey Hongzhuang. Her face was pale, and she had not expected the physical strength of Bailey Hongzhuang to be so overwhelming. It was as if she could not compete against Bailey Hongzhuang. The faces of Nangong Xiujia and Nangong Yujin were also suddenly turning strange. They were aware of how strong Nangong Yuer was. They had not expected that she would come at a disadvantage when fighting against Bailey Hongzhuang. It would seem that the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang was not simple. Previously, because her first opponent, Lu Jinglin, had such weak strength, she had not been able to find out the depth of Bailey Hongzhuang's power. This had caused them all to underestimate her. Next, Nangong Yuer took out a fiery red sword. The sword's blade was red, and it was engraved with delicate lines, shining coldly under the sunlight. Upon seeing it, Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate and took out her own glass sword. Nangong Yuer did not delay herself, rushing towards Bailey Hongzhuang once more. She had already tried once, but now she was going to regain everything she had lost before. Boom! The two women collided and the sound of their swords clashing spread. Everyone saw that the two of them were shrouded in the wind and dust that was kicked up by the collision. The purple and white figures were constantly intertwined. Even the hard ground beneath their feet was starting to show cracks. Sparks were flashing everywhere. Even though the people were not part of the battle, they could feel the danger of it. If they were not careful, then they would be seriously injured. Azure Rainbow Sword. Nangong Yuer screamed out as her majestic yuan qi flowed into the sword. After which, the sword grew in size as it burst towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone could feel the power of this sword, and no one doubted that if this attack landed on Bailey Hongzhuang, if she did not die, she would be seriously injured. Shadowless kill. Bailey Hongzhuang's movement was not slow. When Nangong Yuer displayed her martial art techniques, she also used hers. Everyone saw a flash of silver, but they never saw what martial art that Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed. They were all curious in their hearts. They knew she had used some sort of skill, but there was not even the slightest bit of movement. Bailey Hongzhuang elegantly sidestepped and easily escaped Nangong Yuer's attack. When the sword qi landed on the ground, there was a crack that was over a dozen meters long. When they saw this, everyone in the audience sucked in a cold breath of air. The martial arts of the royal family were really deserving of their reputation. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang was fast enough to move, Otherwise her body was likely to have been chopped into two now. Ah! A sharp scream rang out, and then everyone looked at Nan Gongyuer. They did not know when, but when they looked, they saw that blood was oozing out of her chest. The scream was also coming from Nan Gongyuer. Feeling the pain in her chest, Nan Gongyuer's face was extremely ugly. She had not expected that during this contest, Bailey Hongzhuang would actually be able to hurt her. The most important thing is that she did not even see when Bailey Hongzhuang had attacked her. After everyone noticed the blood oozing out of her chest, their eyes once again landed on Bailey Hongzhuang, but this time the glances were completely different. Who would have thought that the winner of this battle would actually be Bailey Hongzhuang? You actually dare to hurt me? Nan Gongyuer raised her voice. She had never met anyone who dared to hurt her since she began cultivating in Lingyin College. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nan Gongyuer as if she was looking at a fool. Wasn't this woman simply too stupid? Chapter 753, Nan Gongyuer lost. If the third princess is afraid of being wounded, then it is better to not participate in this tournament. Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. Even if Nan Gongyuer's talent was good, her heart and behavior made it impossible for her to have much success in the future. It is difficult to gain strength if one was not constantly fighting on the line between life and death. One needed to experience certain risks. However, Nan Gongyuer could not even stand this wound, so how could her achievements be good? That is awesome. Hongzhuang is too good. This useless princess thought she was so good, but look at the final result. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with excitement. She had not expected that Nan Gongyuer would have said so many words before, and even ridiculed Bailey Hongzhuang as a rival prior to the battle. Zhang Yunfeng and the others also held smiles on their faces. The royal family was really not good. At least Nan Gongyuer was way too spoiled, not at all like a cultivator. Nan Gongyuer has only practiced at the academy and at the royal palace. She has never really fought a serious battle before. Although her cultivation base is good, her combat ability is not at all comparable to a cultivator of the same rank. Even if her martial arts are strong, as long as the opponent has some sort of experience, she won't stand a chance. Gong Xiaoqing's eyes were flashing with wisdom. Such a practitioner was not at all useful. Sometimes, the better the family was, the worse the combat ability of the cultivators, because they were reluctant to be wounded and die. You are completely correct, this is the disadvantage of the royal family. Mo Yunjue nodded slowly and admitted that Gong Xiaoqing had seen through the key problem with a simple glance. Mo Gongzi, you have stayed in the Qing dynasty for so long, do you know if the princes are the same as Nan Gongyuer? Bai Junyu could not help but ask. They had only heard about Nan Gongyuer's strength being overwhelming, they had no idea if he and Nan Gongyuer were the same. If Nan Gongyuer was the same as her, then they did not need to worry. However, Mo Yunjue shook his head. Nan Gongyuer is known to be the most outstanding prince of the Qing dynasty. He wields excellent strength, his mind and character have no flaws. He is completely different from the arrogant Nan Gongyuer. It's not only his cultivation base which is high, he is the real enemy. When he finished speaking, the expressions of the others turned heavy. They had not expected that Nan Gongyuer was so powerful. It seems that if they wanted to win the college tournament, then it would be very difficult. I believe in the strength of Hongzhuang. Xia Jiqing stubbornly believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would win. She had a feeling that she would never lose. The others knew that Xia Jiqing saw Bailey Hongzhuang as an invincible general. But even so they felt some helplessness. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Xiujie did not think that Nangong Yuer would be seriously injured by Bailey Hongzhuang. Nangong Yuer could not stand the pain, it was impossible for the battle to continue. I did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang actually had some strength. Nangong Xiujia's eyes were filled with surprise, and a touch of interest flashed through. No matter how strong Bailey Hongzhuang was, she would definitely be defeated by his hands. Yuer's temper is a big weakness for her. Even if she has not been defeated yet, she can only lose. Yuer has never been able to stand the pain. Nangong Yujin was feeling helpless. He knew that with her temper and personality she could not continue. Chapter 754, Bailey Hongzhuang won. Bailey Hongzhuang wins. When the words of the judge fell, everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had won and successfully advanced. When Bailey Hongzhuang lightly walked down the arena, there was no expression on her beautiful face. This kind of achievement was not enough for her. Nangong Yuer directly left towards the Lingyin College to deal with the injury. Before she left, the hatred in her eyes was even more intense. The Qin dynasty was her turf, and the man she wanted was grabbed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Now she had even dared to hurt her. She would never let Bailey Hongzhuang leave this country alive. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not care about her threat at all. If a threat alone had the power to kill her, then she would have died many times over already. Unfortunately, there were many people in the world who wanted her to die, and if they continued to cause trouble, she would help them on the way. Master, this disgusting princess is really annoying. Why not just directly kill her? Little Black's eyes flashed with anger. She was just a simple princess, but she dared to threaten its owner, simply courting death. Yes, she will definitely find troubles for you in the future. It is better to kill her for our own survival. Little White and Little Black were both very straightforward creatures. They would never drag on anything that could be solved fast, and their ideas had always been to kill fast. The phoenix eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang flashed with a cold light as she smiled slightly. Don't you worry, I have not gone easy on the enemy. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang, Little Black and Little White were both enlightened. According to her words, she had already begun her revenge. Not waiting for Little Black and Little White to ask, Bailey Hongzhuang had already returned to the ranks of the Kanglan College students. When they saw the return of Bailey Hongzhuang, Xia Jiqing was the first to rush up. Hongzhuang, you are simply too great. Nangong Yuer's just unfortunate that her fighting ability is not too good. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Nangong Yuer was usually so proud of her own strength. Not only was her strength outstanding but her background was also very strong. However, they could never have thought that she was just a paper tiger. As long Bailey Hongzhuang realized this, she could have solved the battle long ago, but she did not. Listening to the judgment from Bailey Hongzhuang, Mo Yunjue's eyes also showed signs of praise. The comparison between Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Yuer was such that Nangong Yuer would lose on all fronts. Ruan Yulong's face was very ugly. He did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang was at the second layer of the Red Realm. As long as he had known about this, he would not have promoted the battle. As a mentor of Nangong Yuer, he was also very familiar with her strength. Although Nangong Yuer was in the second layer of the Red Realm, it was only achieved under the accumulation of countless resources, and there was a certain gap when she was compared to other cultivators. However, a rank meant that one still wielded a certain amount of strength, so if the opponent was weaker than her, then it was highly likely that she would have won. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually also at the second layer of the Red Realm? Damn, I did not see through the cultivation base of Bailey Hongzhuang. Ruan Yulong was deeply annoyed in his heart. He had previously noticed Bailey Hongzhuang, but there seemed to be an invisible energy shielding her. He could not accurately judge her cultivation base. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.